Stephon Marbury had a reputation.
The talented point guard had acrimonious relationships with coaches, clashes with teammates, trade disputes, and a very, very well-earned DUI.
Take some Vaseline and swallow it.
However, Mr. Marbury was a mixed bag. Averaging 19 points and 8 assists for his career, he was obviously a very, very talented point guard.
There's no argument, Marbury was a great basketball player. And there's only one next logical step for a great basketball player once they find success and confidence in their role on the premier stage: a signature shoe line.
The shoe you've been waiting for is here. The highly anticipated black Starbury One Away sneaker can be found exclusively at Stephen Barry's University Sportswear.
Of course, Marbury was not the first to do so. There was a guy back in the 80s who kind of set that precedent. But Marbury was different. Marbury was cheap as shit. A surprise to many, Marbury's Starbury One deviated from the consistently shocking prices established by Jordan and Adidas.
I understand how hard it is for parents to basically go out and get certain things, for their kids. Because I was in that situation. You know what I'm saying? $200 for some sneakers, my mother's like, that's groceries for the month.
The main selling point of the shoe is that it cost a smooth $14.99. Initially, nobody was convinced that a discounted footwear could hold up to the rigors of the NBA, even unprofessional basketball. Marbury proved them wrong in a powerful statement, wearing shoes the price of a modern-day McDonald's entree on an NBA floor.
So how did this apparent Robin Hood do it? How did he sell his shoes for far below market price? For one, Marbury was banking on his image. His identity was closely associated with growing up in Brooklyn. Marbury is even heralded as New York's point guard. Even though his career took him across the country, and several others, Marbury's playstyle and personality stayed true to his hometown. He rightfully assumed that New Yorkers would be more likely to buy a New York shoe. Marbury made shoes for those who couldn't afford Jordans. In a vacuum, how Marbury sold his shoes was a great practice. He created basketball shoes that were affordable in an industry where prices rose with every single model.
He also made this incredible commercial.
For a while, this system worked great and made Marbury a good chunk of change. Until it didn't.
However, before we get into all that, I wanted to understand a little bit more about the shoe. I had to see for myself what value the shoe offered the customer. So yes, I did give eBay $50 for a 20-year-old shoe that was originally supposed to cost $14.98. And yes, I refused to appreciate the irony of this situation. I waited a week for my premium diaper shoes to arrive, and
Something tells me this is not the shoes. What the fuck?
the seller had mixed up the orders and sent me some cassette tapes instead. While I listened to those, I went back into eBay and found a listing that was $5 cheaper. Am I a bargain shopper or what?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what I was expecting, but yes, this is a $15 shoe. The upper is made of a weird pleather material that smells kind of off, and the lower is a plastic grip that has no traction whatsoever. I can moonwalk in these things. Marbury claimed that if you cut one of these shoes and then cut a pair of Jordans in half, they would have the same exact build and design inside. While that was proved to be true, it doesn't feel that way. But since I'm testing these outside and not on a hardwood floor, I will wait before I give my final condemnation. Of course, it wouldn't be much fun if I was by myself, so the man I'm testing these shoes out against today is my father, versus me, the 5'11", 145-pound young man with a little bit of swagger. The original plan was game to 5, win by 2. Immediately I could tell that these shoes were not gripping on the concrete. For some of these buckets I felt like I couldn't go full speed or I would slip, fall, and bust my ass. But no matter, I prevailed. Little leg. Another thing I noticed is that I didn't feel entirely safe going for rebounds. Perhaps because they are 20-year-old shoes, but any stop or sudden start on the concrete would have me falling the fuck down. Smooth little air ball there, I'm gonna blame that on the shoes. I had to redeem myself a little bit there. It seems like whenever I play against him, this dude decides to turn into Michael Jeffrey Jordan. I can't hate. I did not defend that at all. I will be completely honest, he beat me twice in a row before this. My dad is pretty good at basketball. Is what I would say if I wasn't the best player on the planet. I hit him with some Hakeem Olajuwon bullshit right here. Yes, I am aware I'm smoking that Larry Bird pack. However, it went in. Yet another offensive foul, the ref didn't call it, you know how it is. A couple of times the difference of 40 pounds may or may not have come into factor when playing this game. At this point, I was feeling a little bit more comfortable driving in a straight line to the bucket. Unfortunately, he was too, even with me in the way. This was definitely a travel, and I am a fraud, but he didn't notice, so I'm gonna count it anyway. Absolutely hustles for his rebounds. This young man plays the game the right way. Us. Us, us. Ooh, us, us. Bang! I think that was probably top 10 slowest Euro steps of all time. And for game, this nice little lefty layup that accounts for about half of my offensive bag. This is the LeBron Witness 7. I've been using it for the past 3 years to play basketball almost daily. It is completely cooked on the bottom. It is still a better basketball shoe than this. Unfortunately, I can't play basketball at all in these. Not only because they're terrible, but also because I don't want to damage them any more than I already have. The plastic holding the shoe together and the cracks, damn, I should write a script or something. I started damaging the shoe, creasing it, and the plastic of the cracks started coming apart. So I'm not gonna use it anymore. I would say looks, 7 out of 10. Grip, fucking 0 out of 10. Comfort, maybe a 3 out of 10. I would not buy this shoe to play basketball in, even though, you know.
Turns out, when you make very little money on the products that you sell, it's kind of difficult to survive as a business. Who knew? Stephon Marbury's was the clothing and apparel store partnering with Marbury to sell his merchandise. They were a retail company that gained popularity for their low prices, opening chains of stores oftentimes in struggling malls for cheap rent. This strategy returned a 50% annual growth rate over 2 decades. But it wasn't all great. A little after the Starbury 2 was renounced, something weird was happening in the market. Do you remember when you were a toddler, playing Wii or some shit, while your parents argued in the other room about money? I don't. I was 3, but that was the 2008 financial crisis. Unfortunately, operating off of razor-thin profit margins, Stephon Marbury's closed their doors and declared bankruptcy. While Marbury's line of shoes and apparel was not the direct source of the retail failure, it certainly didn't help. The marketing system of Stephon Marbury's aligned with Marbury's vision for a $15 line of shoes, but the fact is, it's kinda hard to run a successful business doing it that way. Stephon Marbury's shoe sales weren't his only problem. By 2008, the point guard's formerly lightning-quick first step was starting to fade with his age. But that wasn't the end of the road for Mr. Marbury. He needed a change of scenery, someplace that would pay him for playing basketball and also be a cheap place to produce some shoes. I wonder where that could be. Get ready to learn Chinese, buddy. While Marbury played in China, the memory of the Starbury brand faded in the land of the free. But after laying dormant in the US, the Starburys are slated to have a comeback. In a recent Complex article, Marbury said his cheapest line of sneakers could be making a return. With time spent in retail giant China, he said that he learned valuable intangibles and knowledge to succeed in the shoe industry. To be fair, this is like the 3rd time he said he would do this. But the question is, will a shoe as cheap as the Starbury 1 succeed today? Especially one that failed to make a viable profit in the last economic downturn? There is a good chance that the next diaper shoe will stay a legend. That's the video. Goodbye.